Hello everyone, welcome back to Dark Fears. Tonight, we travel deep into America's northern frontier, Alaska, a land of beauty wrapped in silence, where mountains swallow the sky and endless forests hide secrets older than time itself. Beneath its breathtaking snowcaps and quiet harbors lies a darker reality, one of isolated towns, missing residents, and chilling evidence left behind in the cold. These stories come from police archives, ranger logs, and local testimonies, true accounts that remain unsolved, unexplained, and unforgettable. From coastal fishing towns where people vanish without a trace, to abandoned mining settlements where strange lights still flicker at night, each case reveals another fragment of the mystery that thrives in Alaska's emptiness. Now, settle in and prepare yourself as we uncover the darkness that dwells in the 7 most disturbing true Alaskan small-town horror stories. Whittier, Alaska, a port town of less than 300 people, where most residents live inside one gray concrete tower known as the Begich Towers, a relic of the Cold War built to withstand bombs and blizzards alike. The town, hemmed in by mountains and reachable through a one-way tunnel, is often swallowed by fog and silence. On the evening of October 9th, 2013, 27-year-old Darren Coles, a marine mechanic from Anchorage, arrived to repair a malfunctioning yacht engine for a client staying in the harbor. He was due to leave by noon the next day. But when dawn came, his truck was still parked at the dock, keys inside, door half open, and his tools neatly laid out on the passenger seat. Locals recall a heavy mist that night, a low hum echoing across the water, and the faint glow of the harbor lights flickering like dying candles. By morning, the only trace of Darren was a muddy footprint leading toward the pier, and then nothing. The initial report didn't raise alarms. People go missing in Alaska all the time, weather, wildlife, or simple missteps. But Darren's case felt different. Trooper Liam Harper, leading the search, described the scene as unnervingly clean, as if someone had erased the night. Surveillance footage from the harbor office should have offered answers, but the system malfunctioned. The digital file between 10:32 p.m. and 11:07 p.m. was corrupted, displaying static bursts and flickering streaks of light. A dock worker, Earl Patterson, claimed he saw Darren talking to someone near the edge of the pier just before midnight. He had a flashlight in one hand and kept turning like he was listening to something, Patterson recalled. Then that guy in the orange rain jacket walked right up to him, and they both disappeared into the fog. No one in Whittier owned an orange rain jacket. The police questioned every local resident. Nothing matched. Harper requested a Coast Guard patrol the next morning, but by then, the tide had risen, and heavy rain had wiped away every trace. The town fell quiet again, but unease settled in like frost. By the second day, the Alaskan state troopers had expanded the search radius to cover both the harbor and the nearby Whittier Tunnel, the only road in or out of town. Search dogs were deployed along the shoreline, while divers combed the icy waters of Prince William Sound. The dogs reacted strangely near an unused storage shack at the far end of the pier, whining and refusing to enter. Inside, officers found Darren's cell phone, cracked and waterlogged, lying beneath a pile of old tarps. The last photo on the device was time-stamped 10:46 p.m., showing the foggy harbor, but faintly in the distance. A figure in an orange jacket could be seen standing near the water's edge. The Coast Guard logged the image as unidentified presence. Trooper Harper noted that the man's reflection was missing from the wet boards. It could have been the lighting or the mist, but something about it unsettled him deeply. By nightfall, The search was suspended due to worsening weather. Heavy rain lashed the town, and the harbor lights flickered again, just as they had the night Darren vanished. On October 12th, Darren's belongings were cataloged and sent to Anchorage for forensic analysis. Among them was a toolbox, found untouched in his truck. Inside the lid, troopers discovered a folded sheet of notepaper, written in Darren's handwriting. "If anything happens tonight, tell my brother I saw the lights again." Investigators initially dismissed it as exhaustion or stress. But when they checked Darren's call records, they found a deleted voicemail from 2 nights before his disappearance, partially recovered through data retrieval. In the message, Darren whispered, "They're back near the pier. Same sound, same light." Locals later confirmed a long-standing rumor. Fishermen had reported low-frequency humming across the sound for decades, often preceding electrical disturbances. It was something most had learned to ignore. Harper filed an official request for NOAA data on electromagnetic activity that night. The reply was inconclusive. No unusual readings recorded. Still, the detail about the light wouldn't leave his mind. Whittier's fog has a way of swallowing sound and bending light. But what exactly had Darren seen twice before vanishing? On the 4th day, a dive team from Seward joined the operation. Using sonar and thermal imaging, they began sweeping the harbor basin near the docks. The readings were mostly empty, except one anomaly. About 30 feet deep, divers detected what looked like a metal object lodged in silt near the pier piling. When they descended, the object turned out to be a rusted ladder section detached from the dock's underside. One diver, Kurt Lang, reported something strange in his debriefing. "When I got close, I thought I saw another diver below me, shining a light back up. But the team confirmed no one else was down there." Lang's camera feed, recorded through his helmet, captured a split-second flash of a human outline drifting through the water. The image was distorted by interference, but investigators noted the faint glint of orange fabric. The footage was later reviewed by Anchorage police techs, who concluded it was likely light refraction or an artifact from Lang's headlamp. Still, Harper requested the raw file be preserved in the case archive. The team surfaced shaken and refused another descent that evening. When the case reached Anchorage headquarters, a new anomaly appeared. The digital file containing Darren's last recovered photo had become corrupted during transfer. The backup drive showed only static and a single phrase in garbled text metadata. "Harbor lights, 10:46 p.m. It analysts couldn't explain the error. The file had self-overwritten with data fragments that didn't match any known format. Meanwhile, Trooper Harper interviewed harbor manager Alice Greer, one of the few longtime residents of Whittier. She told him something that hadn't been in the original report. "My father used to say, 'When the fog hums, don't go near the water.'" According to her, there had been 3 disappearances in Whittier between 1979 and 1994. All fishermen, all vanishing during nights when the same droning hum echoed from the sound. None were ever found. Harper began cross-referencing those cases, finding fragments of identical patterns: radio static, fog interference, and light distortions recorded in Coast Guard logs. Whatever was happening in Whittier wasn't new. It had been repeating for decades. The missing man was only the latest entry in a cycle the town had quietly accepted as part of life on the Sound. 2 weeks after the disappearance, Trooper Harper returned to Whittier to close out his final report. The weather had turned colder, the kind of damp chill that seeps through bone and concrete. Most of the harbor was empty, and the fog rolled in early that day, thicker than he remembered. He walked the same pier where Darren was last seen. The boards creaked beneath his boots, wet and glistening with salt. Out near the end of the dock, Harper found something new. A length of rope, recently cut, and tied with a specific double half-hitch knot used by commercial sailors. The rope trailed into the water, pulled taut by something below. When Harper leaned over with his flashlight, the beam disappeared into the black, reflecting off the moving surface. For a moment, he swore he saw a shape beneath the waves, rising, then falling away with the current. A low hum carried through the fog again, faint, mechanical, almost rhythmic. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. Harper stepped back and turned off his light. The sound stopped instantly. The next morning, a small volunteer dive crew attempted one last scan of the harbor. Among them was Kurt Lang, the same diver who had previously reported seeing a figure underwater. The team began their descent at 7:10 a.m. under calm conditions. At 7:18, Lang's comms went silent. The surface operator heard static, then a faint metallic hum. Within seconds, both his oxygen and telemetry dropped offline. The others surfaced immediately, shaken but unharmed. Lang, however, never came back up. Divers later found his tether line severed cleanly, as if cut by a blade. His camera rig was recovered hours later, resting on the seabed. The footage, when analyzed, showed Lang turning his camera toward a flickering light, identical in pattern to the anomaly from Darren's final photo, before the feed abruptly ended. The Coast Guard suspended all underwater operations indefinitely. Harper's official report listed Lang's death as equipment failure during search procedure. But the privately archived footage, labeled Whittier Incident File 04A, remains classified to this day. A week after the final search, residents began reporting strange lights moving silently across Prince William Sound. Slow, deliberate glows that skimmed the surface before vanishing into the mist. Fishermen described them as lanterns under the water, too symmetrical to be reflections. The harbor master logged at least 7 separate sightings between November and December of that year. In every report, the light appeared near the same coordinates, directly below the pier, where Darren vanished. Harper requested a sonar reading of the area once more. The scan, dated December 3, 2013, showed a large metallic return signature approximately 30 feet down, roughly the size of a small car. When a second scan was conducted 2 days later, the object was gone. Locals say the fog hum returned that night, louder than ever. The harbor's electrical grid flickered and failed for 13 full minutes. No one went near the water. When the power came back, a single light still burned on the dock. Darren's old work flashlight, standing upright, batteries drained, its casing crusted with salt. Today, the disappearance of Darren Coles remains unsolved. The official case file, numbered AK130910, is closed but frequently cited in Alaska's missing persons archives for its unusual environmental inconsistencies. Harper retired in 2018. In a rare interview, he admitted one thing. "Every time I think of Whittier, I still hear that hum. I don't know if it was machinery, sonar, or something else entirely. But whatever it was, it didn't want to be found." The Coast Guard denies any knowledge of underwater construction or military testing in Prince William Sound during that period. Yet several declassified NOAA reports show electromagnetic disturbances recorded the same night Darren vanished, later redacted in follow-up releases. Residents still hear the hum some nights when the fog rolls thickest. The town's few fishermen claim the water feels charged, as if holding a current beneath the surface. No new disappearances have been reported since. But the locals know better than to go near the pier when the harbor lights begin to flicker. Because in Whittier, sometimes the fog doesn't just hide what's there, it hides what's still waiting. Nestled at the base of Denali's southern ridge lies Talkeetna, a postcard-perfect town of 900 souls, a place known for small cafes, float-plane tours, and endless silence when the tourists leave. The winters here are long, the air sharp and metallic, and the night sky feels close enough to touch. On January 18, 2016, the Kleiner family, Mark, his wife Evelyn, and their 2 children, Sophie and Ryan, were last seen leaving the local grocery store at dusk. They lived on the edge of town, in a 2-story cabin surrounded by birch trees and deep snow. Neighbors described them as private but kind. Mark worked as a surveyor, Evelyn taught art from home. The following morning, the postman noticed no tire tracks leading out from their driveway. By evening, the family's truck was still parked outside, doors locked, lights off, fireplace cold. Inside the house, everything was in order. Food on the table, TV remote on the couch, and a half-finished puzzle laid out on the floor. But there was no sign of the family, not even footprints leading away from the cabin. The first alert came from Evelyn's sister, who lived in Fairbanks. She hadn't been able to reach the family in 2 days. Every call went straight to voicemail. Local authorities were notified on January 20th, and by afternoon, State Trooper Ben Mercer arrived at the Kleiner residence. The cabin's door was locked from the inside. Mercer entered through a back window, finding the house eerily undisturbed. The dinner table still held 4 plates, cold food untouched. Evelyn's phone was charging by the counter, displaying 3 missed calls at 6:42 p.m., all from a number later traced to her sister. The last outgoing message from the landline was a voicemail to the local power company, time-stamped 6:39 p.m., complaining of flashing lights outside the property. The operator on duty remembered the call vividly, a woman's voice whispering, "They're coming closer." Then static. Outside, Mercer found a set of snowshoe tracks circling the cabin, but they didn't match any known pattern. Each print was longer and narrower, with no heel mark, and seemed to lead toward the tree line before vanishing completely. The first official report labeled the disappearance as suspicious. In Talkeetna, it would become something else entirely. A legend whispered through the snow. By the next morning, the case had grown into a full-scale search. Alaska state troopers, local volunteers, and 2 rescue dogs combed through the surrounding woods. The weather was stable, overcast skies, light snow, visibility good. Still, the team found nothing. The Kleiner cabin stood at the edge of a densely wooded slope that dropped toward the Susitna River, frozen solid that time of year. Searchers followed what appeared to be faint drag marks in the snow near the riverbank, but they ended abruptly, as if erased by wind. Inside the cabin, investigators discovered a portable radio scanner, switched to a dead frequency. Its last recorded transmission log, printed automatically by timestamp, read simply, "Signal received 1845, origin unknown." That time matched precisely when Evelyn's call had ended. The sheriff later admitted in his report that all communication equipment used near the property experienced brief static interference during the search, lasting approximately 8 minutes. When it cleared, one of the rescue dogs, a German shepherd named Coda, refused to approach the tree line again. He just stood there, trembling, staring into the frozen forest, growling at something no one else could see. 2 days later, a volunteer named Mara Jennings discovered something half buried in the snow about half a mile from the Kleiner cabin. a battery-powered tape recorder wrapped in a torn wool scarf. It was later confirmed to belong to Mark Kleiner. When investigators played the tape, the first 2 minutes captured the faint sound of wind, followed by children's laughter, Sophie and Ryan's voices. Then, a sudden sharp knock echoed, and Evelyn's voice whispered, "Mark, they're back at the window." After that, static filled the recording, fluctuating in pitch. But in the final 20 seconds, something else was audible. A low, mechanical humming sound, rhythmic and pulsing like a generator turning over. Then a faint voice, distorted but male, saying only, "Stay inside." Forensic analysis later confirmed that no electrical machinery operated within several miles of the Kleiner property that night. The temperature log from the cabin's generator showed 0 power usage after 6:40 p.m. The tape was labeled Evidence 12A, then sealed. When it was reviewed again weeks later, investigators discovered the humming frequency had somehow changed, rising by 4 hertz since the initial playback. On January 24th, a new search unit expanded their grid northward toward an area known as Dead Birch Ridge, a section of forest avoided by locals due to unstable snowpack. Near the ridge's base, searchers found an unusual depression, as if several bodies had lain there before being lifted away. Thermal drones recorded faint heat signatures under the ice just 10 meters from the site. Excavation crews cut through the crust carefully, revealing a child's mitten and a fragment of red cloth later identified as part of Ryan's winter jacket. But there were no bodies. When rescuers attempted to dig deeper, they encountered a hollow cavity in the ice, roughly 4 feet wide, extending downward. A probe camera was lowered into the gap, capturing footage of frozen tree roots. And then, a flash of something metallic, reflective, before static overtook the feed. Moments later, the cavity collapsed inward, sealing the opening. The temperature at ground level dropped by nearly 5 degrees in less than 2 minutes, recorded on the team's sensors. One rescuer described it simply. It felt like the air was being pulled down into the ground. That evening, Trooper Mercer returned to Anchorage to compile his findings. The radio transmission log from the Kleiner property, the one that read, "Signal received 1845, was missing from evidence. The digital backup existed, but the printed slip was gone. When he cross-referenced timestamps, Mercer discovered an odd pattern. The transmission had occurred 4 minutes before Evelyn's recorded voicemail about the flashing lights, suggesting something had reached the property before she made the call. He requested NOAA's regional satellite logs, hoping to locate any air or weather anomalies over Talkeetna that evening. The response was delayed. When it arrived, the official note read, "Satellite data redacted. Classified under atmospheric test series." Mercer knew no such test had been scheduled. He began to suspect interference from something larger, federal or military. But when he contacted his superiors, they instructed him to close the file pending further developments. He didn't. Instead, he made a private copy of every photo, note, and audio file, labeling them with a single word written in red ink across the folder: unfinished. On January 28th, a week after the initial search, Trooper Mercer returned to the Kleiner cabin with a team of forensic specialists. The snow had accumulated nearly 2 feet higher than during the first visit, erasing the earlier tracks. Inside, nothing appeared disturbed. Until a specialist noticed the fireplace had recently been used, though the logs outside were untouched and frozen. Embers remained warm enough to melt frost on nearby floorboards. More puzzling, a family photograph that had been on the mantel, showing Mark, Evelyn, Sophie, and Ryan smiling, was now face down, though no one had entered the cabin since the search began. No fingerprints, no footprints. Mercer also noticed scratch marks on the wooden doorframe, running from the floor to nearly 4 feet high. They weren't consistent with a child or adult trying to open the door. Too shallow, too irregular, like someone scraping while unseen. As they stepped outside, a low hum returned, faint at first, then rising through the birch trees. Even seasoned officers felt uneasy, pausing to scan the tree line. No movement, no animals, just the sound, rhythmic and metallic. Trooper Mercer later described it as a pulse you feel in your chest before you even hear it. That evening, a hiker named Jonas Feldman, passing near Dead Birch Ridge, reported seeing a figure through the trees, a woman and 2 small children, wearing bright winter clothing, standing motionless and staring at him. Feldman called authorities immediately. Trooper Mercer and local rangers arrived within 20 minutes, combing the area with flashlights and infrared scopes. Nothing. No footprints. No disturbance in the snow. Just the empty forest and echoing silence. When pressed about her clothing, Feldman insisted, "I swear I saw them." And there was a man with them. Tall, wearing a dark jacket, face obscured. The description did not match any known residents or search team members. It also coincided with previous sightings logged by other locals in the weeks before the disappearance. Silhouettes glimpsed from cabins or trails, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. The hiker's report was logged as unverified sighting, Talkeetna case 2016. But Mercer later admitted it weighed heavily on him. Patterns were emerging. The family's disappearance might not have been random, and whatever was involved could be watching, waiting, or herding them through the forest without leaving trace. On February 2nd, a hunting drone deployed near the ridge recorded something unusual. Footage showed 4 figures moving in single file through a clearing, their movement unnaturally silent. The camera zoomed in briefly. Mark, Evelyn, Sophie, and Ryan were recognizable. But the next frame was impossible. The family appeared to vanish mid-step, leaving only an imprint in the snow that collapsed seconds later, as if the earth had swallowed them. The footage cut to static, then resumed, the clearing completely empty. Experts reviewed the tape, confirming there was no editing or camera glitch. The drone's telemetry showed normal operation throughout. The case became a central anomaly in Alaska's missing persons archives, a rare example of people disappearing without trace, despite heavy surveillance. Rangers noted that nearby wildlife behaved strangely in the area afterward. Foxes avoided the clearing, birds did not perch on nearby trees, and no snow animal tracks were recorded for weeks. Trooper Mercer documented everything in his private journal. "I don't know if they were taken or led away, but there is nothing natural about what happened here. Talkeetna is beautiful, yes, but it hides something old, something patient. Today, the Kleiner family is officially listed as missing. No remains, no traces beyond the snow imprints, the recordings, and witness accounts. The drone footage and tape recordings remain sealed in federal evidence, accessible only to select investigators. Talkeetna continues its quiet existence. Visitors and locals report the occasional figures in the trees or unexplained rhythmic humming, especially when the fog rolls thick from Denali. Residents know to avoid Dead Birch Ridge after sunset. The forest itself seems to retain a memory of that night. Mercer, now retired, occasionally reviews the case files privately. He notes patterns across Alaska's missing persons reports, families, hikers, or small groups vanishing in isolated areas, often near rivers, ridges, or forests. With no explanation, no footprints, no disturbance, no bodies. The drone footage, the tape recorder, and the frozen trail. all point to something intelligent and deliberate, yet unseen. It remains a mystery, classified officially as unresolved. In Talkeetna, the winter air carries warnings in silence. Sometimes the snow is not empty. Sometimes the forest does not forgive. And somewhere in the shadows, the Kleiner family, or what remains of them, might still be moving through the trees. Petersburg, Alaska. A logging town surrounded by towering spruce forests, misty fjords, and narrow mountain roads that vanish into snow and fog. Winters are long, and isolation is the norm. In January 2017, a logging crew of 8 men arrived at a temporary site near LeConte Glacier, tasked with felling spruce for the town's sawmills. The camp consisted of 2 portable cabins, a generator, and a few storage sheds. Among the workers was Dale Whitman, a 34-year-old with 15 years of logging experience. Dale's colleagues described him as pragmatic and unflappable, the kind of man who laughed at wild tales of ghosts or the unexplained. But within hours of arrival, even he grew uneasy. The first night, the generator faltered. Lights flickered across the camp as wind howled through the mountains. Crew members reported faint footsteps outside the cabins, not consistent with anyone in camp. Yet when they opened the doors, the snow was undisturbed. By morning, the perimeter cameras recorded something unusual. Glowing orbs hovering between the trees, moving deliberately toward the cabins before vanishing into the fog. Dale examined the footage, rewinding frame by frame, but the objects left no heat signature or physical trace. That night, whispers echoed in the cabins. Low, unintelligible, like the forest itself was speaking. On the second night, something escalated. Tom Erickson, a crewman, awoke to a slamming door in the main cabin. He reported seeing a shadowy figure standing just outside the frosted window, tall and unmoving. When he yelled, it disappeared. Meanwhile, Dale checked the generator and noticed its fuel gauge reading full. Yet the engine sputtered intermittently. Lights flickered with a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. Crew members reported hearing whispers in the wind, repeating phrases none could understand. By dawn, the team found tools arranged oddly in the snow outside. Axes and chainsaws standing upright, frozen in place as if placed by invisible hands. There were no footprints leading to or from them. One worker snapped a photograph, hoping to capture evidence. The image, when reviewed, revealed a faint human shape in the background, just beyond the tree line, wearing clothing that shimmered unnaturally in the morning light. Dale called Petersburg authorities to report the disturbances. Troopers advised caution, but noted the remote location limited response. The forest, they said, was treacherous and unpredictable. Yet no explanation accounted for the lights, whispers, or footprints that kept appearing nightly. By the third night, the crew's unease turned to fear. The generator failed completely, plunging the camp into darkness. Inside the cabins, whispers grew louder, low, guttural, and almost conversational. No one dared leave the safety of the cabins, yet tools and equipment were rearranged outside overnight again. Dale Whitman, the most skeptical of the crew, decided to record audio using a handheld recorder. Hours later, playback revealed faint, deliberate footsteps pacing around the cabin, accompanied by what sounded like chains dragging across the snow. The strange part, the snow outside remained undisturbed. Around midnight, a crewman spotted flickering lights between the trees, like lanterns, but floating in midair. They moved closer, circling the cabins in a silent pattern before vanishing completely. No footprints, no tracks, nothing. One member, Eric Lawson, reported feeling a sudden cold gust inside the cabin, chilling him to the bone despite the closed doors and heater running. At the same time, a shadow darted past the frosted window, so fast it left only a faint silhouette. The crew began rotating watches, staying awake in pairs. Everyone noticed the same thing: the feeling of being watched from every angle, even inside the cabins. On January 22nd, tragedy struck. Eric Lawson, assigned to the overnight watch, vanished without a trace. He was last seen walking toward the generator shed during a power fluctuation. When Dale went to check, the shed was empty, and no footprints led to or from it. The crew called Petersburg authorities immediately. Troopers arrived the next day, combing the surrounding forest with dogs, drones, and snowmobiles. They found nothing. No tracks, no signs of struggle, just Eric's dropped flashlight lying in the snow. Inside the cabins, Dale discovered something chilling: a series of scratches etched into the wooden walls, forming a pattern reminiscent of tally marks. 8 tallies, matching the number of crew members, with one set separated from the others. Satellite imagery later reviewed by authorities showed faint light anomalies moving across the forest canopy near the camp overnight, unexplained by any known human activity. The remaining crew was shaken. Dale noted in his journal, "Whatever is out there, it doesn't want us here. It watches. It waits. And now it has claimed one of us that night." The whispering returned, louder than ever, as the crew huddled in their cabins, counting the members still alive. Desperate to understand the events, Dale set up night vision cameras inside and outside the cabins. Playback revealed disturbing activity. Shadows moved independently of any crew members. Tools lifted from the snow were later returned to their original positions, as if invisible hands had corrected them. Most unsettling was the audio capture. Alongside the familiar whispers, a low-frequency hum resonated through the cabins, fluctuating in pitch. Crew members reported headaches, nausea, and an overwhelming sense of dread when the hum played back. One clip recorded a faint voice speaking directly to Dale, distorted but clearly saying, "Leave now, or be next." The team reviewed all recordings carefully. Each night, the lights appeared in more aggressive patterns, moving closer to the cabins, circling them, and disappearing into the tree line. Investigators later compared the phenomenon to auroral light interference, but no atmospheric data supported this theory. Trooper Mercer, who was consulted remotely, noted, "It's consistent with every reported logging camp disappearance in southeast Alaska over the past 30 years. Strange lights, sound interference, and vanishing workers." The crew began rationing shifts, keeping 2 people awake at all times. But the forest around them remained alive with unseen movements, whispers, and cold gusts that seemed to follow them into the cabins. By January 24th, the camp had been reduced to 6 men. During a routine supply check, Thomas Meyer, a senior crewman, walked toward the storage shed and never returned. Snow tracked no footprints leaving the area. Cameras revealed a shadow moving behind the shed. Then Thomas simply vanished into thin air. Dale and the remaining crew discovered his hat and gloves lying neatly on the shed's roof, frozen solid, untouched by snow. Panic spread. The crew began questioning their sanity as footsteps echoed from empty cabins, and floating lights moved closer each night, as if watching their every move. Communication with Petersburg was intermittent. Radio static and interference plagued the channels. Trooper Mercer advised evacuation, but the crew feared leaving, certain that whatever haunted the camp would follow them into the forest. In the cabin, Dale recorded his final journal entry before the evacuation attempt. "The forest is alive. It watches, it hums, and it does not forgive. We are not alone, and leaving may be impossible. Authorities arrived 3 days later. The logging camp was completely abandoned. No crew, no signs of struggle, no bodies, nothing. Only the tools remained upright in the snow, and strange tally marks carved into the cabin walls, now numbering 6. By February 1st, Trooper Mercer and a special investigation team arrived at the logging camp. The snow had partially melted, revealing strange impressions in the ground. Long, narrow indentations resembling oversized fingers pressed into the soil. No human footprints connected to the marks. Drones and thermal imaging were deployed. Footage captured shadows moving independently of any person in the camp. The lights appeared again, darting through the spruce trees, creating brief reflections on the remaining cabins. Officials tried to match the phenomenon with known wildlife or auroras, but the patterns were deliberate, almost intelligent in movement. Inside the cabins, investigators discovered handwritten messages etched into the wooden walls, partially hidden beneath soot from the fireplace. Words like "leave now" and "they watch" repeated multiple times. Some messages appeared overnight, despite no one entering the cabins. Dale Whitman's personal journal, recovered by authorities, described a low-frequency hum that seemed to synchronize with the flickering generator. Troopers noted that the sound could induce dizziness and anxiety, potentially explaining the crew's state of mind. Despite thorough investigation, no crew members were ever found. The site was classified as hazardous, and logging operations ceased indefinitely. Before leaving, Dale had installed a high-definition camera inside the main cabin, hoping to capture the unseen entity. The footage revealed something unnerving. Around midnight, shadows moved across the walls, stretching unnaturally, flickering with the same rhythm as the low-frequency hum. For brief seconds, the camera caught transparent figures resembling the missing crew, walking silently through the cabins, repeating mundane tasks, stacking tools, tending to the fireplace, then vanishing without trace. The audio track contained faint whispers, some intelligible. "Too late. Leave. They are patient." Investigators noted that the figures' movements mirrored those recorded on previous nights, suggesting an echo of past events, frozen in time. The camera also captured one final anomaly: a faint, glowing orb, larger than those previously observed, hovering just above the cabin floor, moving toward the doorway before disappearing entirely. Dale's journal entry beside the camera simply read, "I fear what watches us may not be human. The forest has a memory, and we have become part of it." This footage became part of the official investigation file, labeled Petersburg Camp 2017, Unresolved. The camp was officially abandoned in February 2017. Logging operations in the surrounding forests were suspended indefinitely. Townspeople of Petersburg whispered of strange occurrences, faint lights in the woods, low humming in the dead of night, and shadows moving independently of the trees. Trooper Mercer, reviewing the case files later, noted that this was not an isolated event. Historical records showed similar logging crews disappearing under unexplained circumstances across southeast Alaska over the past 50 years. Each site shared commonalities: remote locations, low-frequency hums, moving lights, vanishing workers, and untouched equipment. The missing crew were never recovered. Families were offered minimal closure. Their disappearance remains classified in federal records. The cabins, tools, and logging site were left intact, a silent reminder of what happened. Locals report that during winter nights, the forest seems to watch passers-by, carrying an almost tangible presence. Hikers near the abandoned camp occasionally hear faint footsteps or whispers, or see lights darting in impossible patterns. For those who study the cases, the warning is clear. Some parts of Alaska's wilderness are not empty. Some are alive and patient, waiting in silence. Today, the fate of the Petersburg logging crew remains unsolved. No bodies, no signs of struggle, only the recordings, the tally marks, and eyewitness accounts of moving lights and shadows. Federal files remain sealed under unresolved phenomena. Trooper Mercer, now retired, describes the events as, "I've seen many strange things in Alaska, but nothing like Petersburg." The forest remembers. The forest acts. And we were never meant to leave some speculate natural explanations, seismic activity, auroras, optical illusions. Others whisper darker theories, unknown entities, territorial spirits, or phenomena beyond human comprehension. The logging cabins still stand, slowly succumbing to snow and rot. Hikers and locals avoid the area after sunset. Sometimes, during the long winter nights, lights flicker across the spruce canopy and low humming fills the air. The mystery remains unsolved. The crew vanished, leaving behind only a warning etched in frozen snow, whispered in the wind, and recorded in the hum of the forest itself. For Petersburg and the forests of southeast Alaska, the past is not past. It waits, silent, watching, patient. The Kenai Peninsula, stretching hundreds of miles along Alaska's southern coast, is a land of jagged cliffs, dense spruce forests, and hidden coves. Winters here are bitter, with winds sweeping off the Gulf of Alaska, carrying snow and an eerie sense of isolation. On March 3, 2018, a small group of 4 experienced hikers set out from the town of Seward, heading toward a remote area near Resurrection Bay. Among them was Michael Hansen, 29, a seasoned outdoorsman; Laura Kim, 27, an amateur photographer; and 2 friends, Jason and Aaron. Their goal was simple: capture photos of the peninsula's ice-laden cliffs and return before nightfall. They were well prepared, carrying GPS trackers, satellite phones, and enough supplies for several days. But by March 5th, they hadn't returned. Concerned locals notified the Seward police. When rescuers traced their GPS signals, they found a single ping near Hidden Cove, a narrow, forested inlet almost impossible to access on foot. When authorities arrived, the beach was empty, footprints ending abruptly at the tree line. Gear was left behind: backpacks, food supplies, and a single camera pointing inland from the cove, still recording. Nothing else suggested struggle. It was the start of a mysterious disappearance that would haunt the Kenai Peninsula for years. Rescue teams combed the forest surrounding Hidden Cove. Snow was deep, but not yet frozen solid. Investigators discovered footprints that appeared to belong to all 4 hikers. But strangely, they ended abruptly at the base of a small ravine. There were no signs of climbing, sliding, or attempts to continue, as if the hikers had simply vanished into thin air. The camera recovered from the beach contained partial footage. The hikers had documented themselves navigating the forest, joking and laughing, unaware of any danger. Minutes later, the audio picked up low, rhythmic sounds, not wind, not wildlife. Almost like a distant heartbeat reverberating through the trees. By reviewing the timestamps, investigators noted the sound coincided with a sudden, unaccountable drop in temperature recorded by their wearable GPS sensors. The last video frame showed the hikers standing at the edge of the ravine, pointing toward a faint shimmer in the trees, before the camera's feed flickered and cut. Local authorities immediately expanded the search perimeter, fearing a misstep into treacherous terrain. But nothing was found. No bodies, no gear, no signs of wildlife predation. For Michael Hansen's family, the footage offered only more questions, hinting at something unseen waiting in the Kenai forests. By March 6th, the search had intensified. Troopers, local volunteers, and K-9 units scoured the dense spruce forests near Hidden Cove. Snow was ankle-deep in some areas, knee-deep in others. Despite the manpower, nothing, not a single hiker, was found. Investigators noticed something unusual. Along the trail, patches of snow appeared disturbed in strange, circular patterns, almost like the ground had been pressed down repeatedly by something massive. But nothing visible was present. The K-9 units reacted erratically, barking at areas where no human or animal presence could be detected. Meanwhile, the camera recovered from the cove revealed more unsettling footage. The hikers' laughter gave way to whispers, faint but persistent, coming from the tree line. Occasionally, the whispers included fragmented phrases. "Stay close, follow, not alone." The most chilling clip showed the hikers walking along a ridge when a sudden shimmer appeared in the trees, reflecting the sunlight like ice, yet moving unnaturally, shifting closer with each step. Aaron turned and said, "Do you see that?" But the next frame captured only static, then darkness. At that point, authorities realized this disappearance wasn't ordinary. The combination of vanished footprints, strange patterns in the snow, and inexplicable audiovisual phenomena suggested something far beyond typical wilderness hazards. On March 7th, volunteer hiker Jonas Reynolds reported seeing movement in Hidden Cove, silhouettes walking through the dense forest near the ravine. He called authorities immediately. Troopers arrived within an hour, following his coordinates. By the time they reached the spot, the trees were empty. No footprints, no signs of passage. Only snow disturbed in shallow arcs, like something large had slid across the forest floor without touching it fully. The recovered camera showed the same sequence, the hikers staring at an iridescent shimmer moving toward it. Michael's hand is seen reaching toward the light. Then the footage abruptly ends. Audio analysis revealed low-frequency pulses, imperceptible to the human ear, embedded beneath the wind and footsteps. Forensic experts speculated that these pulses could induce disorientation or temporary paralysis, potentially explaining why the hikers stopped moving at the ravine edge. But that theory could not account for the complete disappearance of 4 adults, experienced outdoorsmen, in broad daylight. By evening, authorities had expanded search zones along the cliffs and inland, deploying drones and thermal imaging. No heat signatures were detected beyond the ravine. The Kenai Peninsula had swallowed its visitors, leaving only footprints and a camera. The first contact between humans and whatever lurked in the forest. Authorities analyzed the hikers' camera extensively. Frames from March 3rd and 4th showed unexplained anomalies. Faint silhouettes moving independently of the hikers, glimmers in the snow that appeared to shift when viewed frame by frame, and shadows stretching unnaturally toward the camera. The audio track contained low murmurs, almost intelligible, and a rhythmic hum that correlated with the hikers' GPS sensors recording a sudden drop in body temperature by 4 to 5 degrees. Michael and Laura's voices on the recording indicated mild confusion, commenting on something watching them. A particularly chilling clip revealed a flash of movement in the treetops, something large and humanoid, yet impossible to quantify. Investigators noted that no trees had been bent or broken, yet the shadow cast on the snow suggested a figure taller than any human in the area. Further analysis revealed metadata anomalies. The timestamps of the last frames did not match any camera settings. The device's internal clock had reset twice, with no evidence of tampering. Investigators concluded something intelligently manipulated the environment, remaining invisible yet able to affect electronics, light, and temperature. Local rangers noted that this phenomenon resembled historical missing person patterns along Kenai Peninsula, where hikers vanished without trace, leaving gear intact. By March 8th, a joint task force of troopers, volunteers, and search and rescue drones combed over 50 square miles of forest and cliffside. Teams found no evidence of struggle, no animal tracks, and no bodies. Only subtle disturbances in snow, patches of compressed undergrowth, and the hiker's gear left behind. Thermal imaging detected brief heat signatures that appeared and disappeared too quickly to belong to humans or animals. Some drone operators reported auditory hallucinations, faint whispers and pulses echoing through headphones. Satellite imagery over Hidden Cove revealed irregular light anomalies, moving in patterns inconsistent with natural aurora or human activity. Analysis suggested the presence of something capable of intelligent movement, yet remaining invisible to the naked eye. Meanwhile, forensic analysis of the camera showed digital glitches coinciding with these light anomalies, reinforcing the theory that external forces were manipulating both the hikers and their equipment. Authorities began to suspect the area had a history of unexplained disappearances dating back decades. Locals whispered that some cliffs and ravines were cursed or claimed by the forest. Despite exhaustive efforts, the hikers remained missing. The peninsula, vast and unforgiving, had concealed them perfectly. On March 10th, troopers discovered strange patterns in the snow near the tree line above Hidden Cove, circular impressions forming an almost perfect spiral. Each depression was large enough for a human body, yet no bodies were present. Instruments detected slight electromagnetic anomalies, fluctuating in sync with a faint, low-frequency hum that now seemed omnipresent. Review of the hiker's camera revealed the last frames before disappearance. The group standing at the spiral center, frozen, facing the forest as if compelled to look in a certain direction. A faint shimmer appeared in front of them, brighter than anything previously recorded. Then, nothing. The next frame was static, and the camera remained on the snow for several minutes afterward. Trooper Mercer, called in for consultation, noted, "This pattern, the hum, the visual anomalies, it's consistent with phenomena reported in Alaska for decades. People vanish, cameras capture strange light, equipment fails. The forest, it remembers and acts. The team combed the area thoroughly. No footprints led into the spiral, no drag marks, nothing disturbed beyond the impressions themselves. The disappearance remained inexplicable, even to seasoned search and rescue personnel. Whatever had claimed the hikers had left no trace." Local fisherman Raymond Holt reported seeing figures in the fog near Hidden Cove days after the hikers vanished. He described 4 silhouettes moving slowly through the forest, their forms distorted, almost translucent, with light reflecting unnaturally off their bodies. Authorities investigated. The area appeared undisturbed, snow intact, no footprints, no signs of passage. Holt's account, however, matched the camera footage. 4 hikers, frozen mid-step, facing the forest spiral, shimmering in the low fog. A forensic audio team reviewed recordings and noted background hums matching Holt's descriptions. Rhythmic pulses, low and constant, detectable even at a distance of several hundred meters. The phenomenon appeared to affect both humans and electronic devices. Officials speculated about natural explanations: unusual aurora effects, ice crystals refracting light, or geomagnetic interference. But none accounted for the simultaneous disappearance, camera anomalies, and visual witness accounts. By March 12th, search teams were recalled. the hikers were officially listed as missing. The Kenai Peninsula, vast and untamed, had claimed its victims without explanation. The disappearance had a profound impact on the local community. Seward residents avoided Hidden Cove, sharing tales of haunting lights, whispers in the wind, and sudden temperature drops. Families of the missing hikers faced grief compounded by mystery. No remains, no clues, only the camera and witness accounts. Authorities filed the case under unsolved disappearances, citing extraordinary circumstances. Satellite and aerial imagery confirmed no human activity matching the hikers' footprints beyond the spiral site. Trooper Mercer remarked, "It's unlike anything I've seen. The forest doesn't just hide people, it seems to claim them, leaving only traces that defy explanation." The recovered camera and audio recordings were archived for scientific study. Experts in geomagnetism, light refraction, and psychological phenomena were consulted. None could fully explain the events. The hikers' gear remained at Hidden Cove, slowly succumbing to snow, ice, and decay. A frozen monument to the unknown. Local guides now warn visitors, do not venture beyond the marked trails during winter, especially near the tree lines and ravines where strange phenomena have been repeatedly reported. For the Kenai Peninsula and Alaska at large, some disappearances cannot be explained by bad weather or bad luck. The forest holds secrets, and it appears some of them are intentional, patient, and intelligent. To this day, the 4 hikers remain missing. No human or animal explanations have sufficed. The Kenai Peninsula holds their absence like a scar. Visible in the undisturbed snow, the spirals in the forest, and the shimmering light caught on cameras. Trooper Mercer, reflecting years later, stated, "I've investigated countless missing person cases in Alaska. Some are accidents, some negligence. But Hidden Cove, that's different. There's something beyond our understanding, and it operates silently, without trace. Local folklore has merged with fact. Guides and townspeople report strange lights, whispers, and shadows moving independently of any physical presence. Scientists studying the area note electromagnetic fluctuations, sudden temperature anomalies, and unexplained light phenomena. For the families, closure never came. The camera recordings remain archived but inaccessible to the public. Kenai Peninsula, beautiful and unforgiving, keeps its victims hidden, perhaps forever. The case is a reminder. In Alaska's remote wilderness, vanishing is sometimes more than just an accident. Some forests, cliffs, and coves hold secrets that no human logic can unravel. And those who enter may not return, leaving behind only questions and the faint hum of the unseen. Bethel, Alaska, a small town nestled along the Kuskokwim River, is surrounded by miles of frozen marshlands, dense spruce forests, and winding tributaries. Winters are long, the sun barely rising above the horizon, and the town becomes increasingly isolated. On January 15, 2019, a group of 5 local hunters, Isaac Brown, Thomas Young, Mary Ellen Pike, David Long, and Rachel Hart, set out to trap beavers along a remote stretch of the Bethel River. Experienced outdoorsmen, they were well equipped with snowmobiles, rifles, and emergency supplies. As night fell, a blizzard swept through the river valley, visibility dropping to near zero. The hunters set up a temporary camp on a frozen riverbank, lighting small fires and checking traps. At first, everything appeared normal. Then, around 11:30 p.m., Thomas reported hearing footsteps crunching in the snow beyond the tree line. Yet no one was outside. A low wind howled through the river valley, carrying faint whispering sounds, almost conversational, but indistinguishable. By morning, one hunter, Mary Ellen Pike, was missing. Her snow boots were left by the campfire, and her tracks led only 10 feet into the snow, abruptly ending. The remaining 4 called local authorities. Troopers responded immediately, but the blizzard had erased most footprints, leaving behind only disturbed snow and the chilling sense of an unseen presence. By January 16th, troopers and local volunteers launched a search along a 10-mile stretch of the river. Snowmobiles and drones were deployed, but the blizzard left conditions treacherous and visibility near zero. The remaining hunters were visibly shaken. Isaac Brown reported hearing low-frequency hums that seemed to move with the wind, sometimes near the camp, sometimes deeper into the forest. David Long described shadowy figures flitting through the trees just at the edge of perception. Search teams discovered disturbed snow in irregular patterns, shallow depressions resembling handprints, but far larger than any human hand. K9 units refused to enter certain sections of the spruce forest, barking furiously at apparently empty spaces. By evening, authorities found Mary Ellen's rifle resting upright in the snow, perfectly vertical, despite no visible support. Her gloves and hat were placed neatly beside it. The remaining hunters confirmed they had not done this. Aerial drones captured faint, fast-moving lights weaving through the trees at night, moving too deliberately to be wildlife, too erratic to be mechanical. One drone operator swore the lights reacted to their movements, almost as if they were aware of being observed. The search expanded the following day, but no human, animal, or logical explanation could account for Mary Ellen's disappearance or the unusual disturbances. By January 17th, the blizzard intensified. Visibility dropped to a few feet, and the search team struggled to maintain radio contact. The remaining hunters, Isaac, Thomas, David, and Rachel, reported strange occurrences. Whispers coming from empty trees, snowmobiles failing intermittently, and shadows moving against the wind. Isaac described a chilling moment, a figure standing silently on the frozen river, far from the tree line, perfectly still, then vanishing when approached. Attempts to track the figure produced no footprints or tracks in the deep snow. Meanwhile, David noted the low-frequency hum growing stronger at night, vibrating through the snow and ice. It seemed to react to movement, growing louder when anyone attempted to search or move quickly. The drone footage revealed rapidly moving lights weaving through the forest, changing patterns abruptly, almost as if watching the search team. These lights appeared to avoid capture, vanishing when approached. By the evening, Rachel reported that traps they had set earlier were now carefully disarmed, untouched by hands, yet arranged as if someone had inspected them. The remaining hunters grew terrified. Something intelligent, unseen, and aware was operating in the forest. Authorities expanded the search zone, but no further traces of Mary Ellen were found. The blizzard had erased most evidence, leaving behind only an ominous sense of observation. On January 18th, tragedy struck again. Rachel Hart disappeared near a cluster of spruce trees while checking traps. Her snow boots were found neatly placed atop a fallen log, with no tracks leading away. The remaining hunters were paralyzed by fear. Thomas Young and David Long tried to follow Rachel's path, but the snow appeared unnaturally undisturbed. K9 units refused to enter the area, barking at empty space. The recovered camera showed Rachel pausing near the trees, staring intently at something invisible to the lens. A faint, iridescent shimmer appeared between the trunks, moving with deliberate speed toward her. She lifted a hand, hesitated, then vanished instantly, leaving only a faint ripple in the snow. Investigators noted that the blizzard had intensified coincidentally with the disappearance, making it nearly impossible for anyone to reach the area safely. Drone footage captured fast-moving lights circling above the treetops, never settling long enough to identify their source. Authorities concluded that Rachel's disappearance was not caused by wildlife, terrain, or human error. The patterns, footprints ending abruptly, objects carefully placed, lights reacting to observers, mirrored historic unexplained vanishings in Alaska. The remaining hunters were evacuated under armed escort, but the river valley remained haunted by the unexplained. Authorities recovered cameras, GPS trackers, and drones from the hunters. Analysis revealed multiple anomalies: distorted footage, shadows moving independently of the camera, and subtle light patterns that shifted when reviewed frame by frame. The audio contained whispers, faint but intelligible. "Leave, not yours. Follow." The low-frequency hum, recorded on every device, interfered with electronic signals, causing GPS and radio devices to malfunction intermittently. Scientists confirmed that the hum had no natural origin, fluctuating in a pattern too complex to be explained by wind or ice. Investigators also documented unusual snow patterns, spiral and circular depressions, each large enough to hold a human body, perfectly symmetrical but empty. Some depressions had faint scratch marks on surrounding trees, suggesting movement that defied known animal or human activity. Forensic specialists noted that the disappearances resembled historical Bethel River incidents spanning decades. Experienced outdoorsmen vanished under similar conditions, leaving gear, footprints ending abruptly, and no trace of struggle. Authorities attempted psychological profiling, but the remaining hunters reported consistent experiences. A sense of being watched, whispers, lights moving independently, and the unnerving feeling that the forest itself was alive and aware. The case file labeled the incident as unsolved, emphasizing the unexplained disappearances, anomalous environmental activity, and electronic interference. The cameras revealed Rachel's final moments before vanishing. She's seen staring at the air in front of her, her expression frozen in shock. Faint, shimmering lights move unpredictably, and shadows stretch unnaturally across the snow. The audio track captures low whispers, repeated phrases, and the hum pulsating with increasing intensity, synchronized with the flashing lights. Scientists confirmed the hum could potentially cause dizziness, disorientation, or temporary paralysis, explaining why the hunters were unable to react. Drone footage revealed objects moving without contact. Rifles, backpacks, and even snowmobiles subtly shifted overnight. Nothing else suggested human intervention. Investigators documented the sudden disappearance patterns: footprints ending, objects neatly placed, environmental disturbances, and glowing lights. The combination of anomalies led experts to conclude that something intelligent, unseen, and capable of manipulating the environment had claimed the hunters. Local authorities warned residents to avoid the Bethel River area in winter, citing repeated incidents of disappearances under similar conditions. The forest, deep and vast, had proven capable of hiding experienced outdoorsmen without leaving evidence. The incident remained classified as unresolved, with the remaining 3 hunters evacuated but traumatized. To this day, the Bethel River Valley is considered a place where humans may enter but never fully return. By January 20th, authorities brought in specialized search and rescue teams and forensic investigators. The blizzard had cleared slightly, revealing subtle anomalies in the snow. Spiral depressions, compressed patches of undergrowth, and snow displaced as if by invisible hands. The recovered cameras, drones, and GPS trackers were analyzed. Footage revealed the remaining hunters attempting to trace Rachel's path, only to find the snow and forest subtly altered, as though the landscape itself shifted to confuse them. Faint glimmers of light danced between the trees, avoiding direct capture, while the low hum remained omnipresent. Investigators noted the similarity to past Alaska disappearances, experienced outdoorsmen vanishing without trace, leaving equipment untouched and footprints abruptly ending. Experts in geomagnetic and environmental anomalies confirmed unusual electromagnetic fields in the area, but could not explain their origin or behavior. The remaining hunters described a feeling of being watched, as if the forest itself had intent. Thomas Young later stated, "It wasn't animals. It wasn't the snow. Something was thinking, waiting, choosing." The river valley was declared hazardous. Search operations ceased for safety reasons, but investigators warned that whatever had taken the hunters was still present, unseen and patient. Local residents reported seeing flickering lights along the Bethel River for weeks after the disappearances. Fishermen, hunters, and hikers described shadowy silhouettes moving silently, often near the areas where the hunters had vanished. Investigators reviewed drone footage and satellite images. In several frames, they observed glowing orbs darting among the trees, moving in deliberate patterns inconsistent with birds, insects, or reflections. Equipment malfunctioned near these areas. Radios cut out, GPS trackers froze, and cameras produced distorted imagery. Forensic audio experts analyzed recordings from the hunters' cameras. The low-frequency hum was complex and variable, changing intensity and rhythm as if reacting to human presence. Some suggested it could be a natural geomagnetic phenomenon, but the precision and pattern suggested intentionality. Psychologists interviewed surviving hunters, noting signs of trauma consistent with intense psychological stress, disorientation, and fear of being followed. All four reported the same experiences: unseen forces, glowing lights, whispers, and an overwhelming sense of observation. Authorities concluded that the Bethel River Valley contained an unresolved, anomalous phenomenon, capable of influencing humans, electronics, and even the environment itself. The Bethel River disappearances had a lasting impact. Residents avoided the area, especially during winter months. Fishing and hunting guides issued stern warnings, citing repeated reports of strange lights, low hums, and vanished hikers. The families of Mary Ellen Pike and Rachel Hart never received closure. Investigators archived the camera footage, audio recordings, and environmental measurements in a restricted federal file, labeled Unresolved Anomalous Incidents. No bodies were ever recovered. Psychologists noted long-term trauma among the surviving hunters. Isaac Brown remarked, "Even now, I feel it watching. Every winter, when the wind moves through the spruce, I hear the hum. I know it's still there." Experts continue to study the phenomenon. Electromagnetic readings, satellite anomalies, and historical accounts suggest the river valley has a pattern of mysterious vanishings spanning decades. Though some suggest natural explanations, ice, wildlife, or human error, none can fully account for the organized patterns of disappearance and environmental manipulation. The Bethel River stands as a reminder of the unknowable dangers lurking in Alaska's wilderness, where experienced outdoorsmen vanish, leaving behind only faint traces, abandoned gear, and the echo of a low, persistent hum. The vanishings at Bethel River remain officially unsolved. No physical explanation has sufficed. No predatory animals, no human intervention, and no natural accidents can account for the sudden disappearances of Mary Ellen and Rachel. The surviving hunters describe an unseen presence capable of manipulating snow, objects, light, and sound. Investigators noted the consistency with previous Alaskan disappearances, where the environment itself seemed to act with intention, leaving gear untouched but selectively erasing footprints and traces. Local folklore has fused with fact. Guides and townspeople warn that the Bethel River Valley is not just treacherous, but sentient in its behavior. A place where humans may enter and never return. The archived camera footage, along with environmental recordings, remains classified, accessible only to federal researchers. Scientists continue to study the anomaly, but no conclusive explanation has emerged. For Alaska and the small town of Bethel, the case is a haunting reminder. The wilderness is vast, mysterious, and sometimes deliberately unforgiving. The forest, the snow, and the frozen river have claimed their victims, leaving behind only unanswered questions, disrupted landscapes, and a faint, persistent hum in the winter wind. Kodiak Island, Alaska, is known for its rugged coastline, dense forests, and scattered, isolated cabins used by hunters and fishermen. Winter brings long nights, fierce winds off the Gulf of Alaska, and snow that can bury trails in hours. On December 8th, 2020, a caretaker named Ethan Cross, 34, was stationed at a remote cabin near the northern cliffs of Kodiak Island. He was responsible for maintaining the cabin for visiting hunters and ensuring supplies were available. Alone for weeks at a time, Ethan was experienced with survival and isolation. But this stay would take a sinister turn. On the first night, he noticed footprints in the snow leading toward the cabin, unusual as no visitors were scheduled. The prints were large, irregular, and ended abruptly near the porch, as if whoever made them had vanished into thin air. Ethan dismissed it at first, attributing it to wildlife. Yet by the second day, he found supplies slightly rearranged, not haphazardly, but meticulously, as though someone had examined each item. He began documenting every anomaly in a notebook, noting disturbances in snow, shifted furniture, and unexplained sounds at night. Footsteps, whispers, and occasional low thuds. By December 10th, Ethan's concern escalated when he discovered a faint shimmer along the tree line, moving deliberately toward the cabin at dawn. By December 11th, Ethan recorded multiple disturbances in the snow around the cabin. Prints circling the cabin, depressions and patterns that suggested observation rather than movement. A small drone he launched malfunctioned within minutes, its feed flickering and displaying shadows that seemed to move independently. Inside the cabin, Ethan heard whispers in the walls, indistinct yet deliberate. Occasionally, the lights flickered even though the generator and wiring were fully functional. A low-frequency hum began resonating through the wooden floorboards, subtle but persistent, causing a mild sense of disorientation. Ethan captured partial footage of the shimmer outside. It appeared humanoid, yet translucent, moving in erratic patterns, sometimes near the porch, sometimes atop nearby cliffs. The figure seemed to observe him, avoiding direct contact, almost testing his reactions. During a video call with his supervisor, Ethan appeared visibly shaken. He described objects subtly shifting, shadows moving against the natural flow of light, and whispers in the wind. The supervisor instructed him to remain inside the cabin and document everything until help could arrive. But visibility outside was nearly zero due to blowing snow. By evening, Ethan noted a second shimmer emerging across the tree line, following the first in mirrored movement. Fear gripped him. He was not alone, and the island had something unseen, patient, and intelligent. By December 12th, Ethan Cross felt a growing sense of being observed. The wind howled across Kodiak Island's cliffs, carrying faint, indistinct whispers that seemed to shift in direction and intensity. Footprints in the snow had multiplied overnight, forming loops and arcs around the cabin, yet none led to or from the forest's edge. Ethan attempted to record the phenomena on camera. Each time he reviewed the footage, The shimmer outside appeared to change position unnaturally, closer or farther than reality suggested. Shadows stretched in ways that defied natural light, and objects inside the cabin subtly shifted, sometimes overnight, sometimes within hours. A low-frequency hum vibrated through the floorboards, pulsing in rhythm with Ethan's heart rate as recorded by his wearable tracker. It became increasingly difficult to focus, sleep, or maintain rational thought. Ethan ventured outside briefly, documenting footprints in snow leading toward a cliffside cave, faintly illuminated by the morning light. He did not approach the cave. Something about it suggested intentional danger. By nightfall, two shimmers appeared simultaneously, mirroring each other's movements, hovering silently among trees. Ethan barricaded the cabin doors, documenting every sound and movement. The island, he realized, was far from empty. It was alive, intelligent, and patient. On December 13th, Ethan attempted to approach one of the shimmers. Snow crunched beneath his boots, yet the figure seemed to glide effortlessly, unaffected by terrain. As he drew closer, the shimmer pulsed with light, almost as if acknowledging his presence. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the cabin and surrounding snow, disorienting him. Ethan noticed objects inside the cabin reacting to the shimmer. Chairs subtly tipped, a kettle rattled, and the drone footage distorted into static, showing only glimpses of a translucent figure. Ethan radioed his supervisor, describing a shape with humanoid proportions, yet impossibly fluid and reflective, moving independently of wind or snow. The supervisor instructed him to remain inside and continue documenting, warning not to engage. By evening, the shimmers appeared closer, positioned at opposite sides of the cabin, moving deliberately, almost communicating with each other. Ethan could feel a pressure in the air, as though the unseen presence weighed down on him. The first night of observation ended with Ethan unable to sleep. He documented over 20 anomalies that evening alone, marking the cabin as an epicenter of unexplained, intelligent activity. December 14th brought more evidence of the phenomenon's intelligence. Ethan found supplies carefully rearranged, as though someone had examined each item. Footprints outside shifted overnight, forming patterns too precise to be random. A snow shovel was found upright in the snow, untouched by human hands. Camera footage showed shimmers moving in synchronized patterns, almost like a choreographed dance. Occasionally, they paused and appeared to observe Ethan's movements, then resumed their erratic patrol. Audio analysis revealed whispers repeating the same phrases over hours. Observe, remain, leave. Ethan noted that drones could not capture the figures fully. The shimmers appeared to interact with electronics, causing malfunctions and static interference. Even his radio displayed distorted messages, often repeating fragmented sentences from his own earlier transmissions. The caretaker documented environmental anomalies. Air temperature drops of 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit in localized areas, snow compressed in unnatural spirals, and faint electromagnetic pulses detected on all devices. Ethan recorded his observations meticulously, labeling them as potential evidence of an unknown, intelligent force, capable of manipulating environment, objects, and human perception. By December 15th, Ethan realized his isolation made him vulnerable. Yet he could not leave the cabin. Snow conditions, blizzard warnings, and the presence of the shimmers rendered escape impossible. The Kodiak Island cabin had become a trap of unseen, calculated presence. By December 16th, the shimmers' behavior escalated. Ethan observed 3 figures moving deliberately around the cabin, forming patterns in the snow that resembled ritualistic shapes. Yet he could not interpret their meaning. He attempted to record them continuously. Each time he checked footage, the figures appeared closer, more defined, with a subtle, almost humanoid glow. Interior objects responded in kind. Chairs tipped slightly toward the figures' positions, lights flickered, and the low hum synchronized with movement outside. Ethan ventured outside briefly, documenting faint snow spirals extending toward a nearby cliff, where the wind howled and visibility dropped. The figures followed, hovering just beyond clear sight, never fully visible, but undeniably present. By nightfall, he noted an invisible pressure, a sensation of being watched from all directions. The shimmers seemed to coordinate, moving fluidly, tracing his movements like predators studying prey. The caretaker barricaded windows and doors, documenting every anomaly in his notebook, aware that any misstep could provoke unknown consequences. The cabin, once a refuge, had transformed into the epicenter of an intelligent, alien presence, capable of influencing snow, light, sound, and human perception. Ethan's journal ended the night with a chilling entry. "They are not invisible. They are observing. I am inside their space, and they are patient." On December 17th, Ethan awoke to find his snow boots missing, though the cabin door remained locked from the inside. A careful search revealed footprints in the snow circling the cabin, forming a spiral pattern, but leading nowhere. He noted in his journal, "It's deliberate. They are playing with me, guiding me." The shimmers appeared outside, closer than ever, hovering near the cabin windows. Each figure moved independently, yet in coordinated patterns, almost as if studying Ethan's reactions. Small objects inside, a kettle, a chair, a lantern, were subtly shifted toward the figures' positions. Ethan attempted to leave, but the snow outside appeared altered, footsteps erased, spirals forming, disorienting his perception. The low hum intensified, resonating through the cabin and vibrating in the frozen ground beneath him. By evening, a sudden gust slammed the cabin door open. Ethan attempted to flee, documenting everything on his camera. Footage captured a shimmer moving with him, faster than physically possible, guiding him toward the forest edge. When he looked back, one shimmer hovered over the cabin, emitting a bright pulse of light, and Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of dread. By nightfall, the first shimmer seemed to vanish, but Ethan's journal notes abruptly end here, marking the beginning of his disappearance. Authorities dispatched a search team on December 18th, equipped with snowmobiles, drones, and infrared cameras. The team found footprints abruptly ending in spirals, objects shifted inside the cabin, and no trace of Ethan. Drone footage captured fleeting glimpses of 3 translucent figures moving among trees and cliffs. Each shimmer avoided direct capture, disappearing when approached but reappearing elsewhere. The low hum recorded on all devices intensified near the cabin, affecting radios and GPS units, causing brief disorientation among searchers. Investigators documented spirals and circular depressions in snow surrounding the cabin, some large enough to suggest a human body could fit. There were no drag marks or disturbances, yet snow appeared compressed as if under invisible weight. Psychologists interviewed searchers, who reported a sensation of being watched, unexplained chills, and a perception that the shimmers were reacting to their movements. Military-grade thermal cameras failed to capture heat signatures of the figures. The search concluded without recovery. Authorities classified the case as unresolved, noting anomalies: snow spirals, electronic interference, hovering shimmers, and the sudden disappearance of an experienced outdoorsman. Kodiak Island's remote cabins remained a dangerous and unexplained location. The disappearance of Ethan Cross left Kodiak Island residents deeply unsettled. Visitors were warned against staying in remote cabins during winter, citing repeated incidents of unexplained phenomena and vanishings. Investigators archived Ethan's camera footage, drone recordings, and journal notes, labeling the files as anomalous and classified. Experts noted patterns consistent with previous Alaskan cases: footprints abruptly ending, objects moved deliberately, low-frequency hums, and figures that defy physical explanation. The cabin remained unoccupied for months, slowly succumbing to snow and ice. Photographs captured from helicopters months later revealed unusual patterns in snow surrounding the cabin, spirals and depressions inconsistent with wind or wildlife. Local folklore merged with fact. Guides and residents described flickering lights, whispers in the wind, and shadows moving independently of any natural source. Stories of previous vanishings were recounted, all bearing striking similarities to Ethan's disappearance. The forest and snow behaving intelligently, deliberately, and unpredictably. The Kodiak Island cabins, beautiful yet remote, became symbols of human vulnerability and extreme isolation. Those who enter may be observed, tested, and sometimes claimed, leaving behind gear, spirals, and snow, and the haunting echo of the low hum. Ethan Cross remains unaccounted for. No evidence has surfaced explaining his disappearance or the behavior of the Shimmers. Military, scientific, and civilian investigations have concluded the phenomena are unexplained, intelligent, and capable of environmental manipulation. Witnesses describe the cabin as alive, with snow, wind, and light behaving deliberately. Investigators note the similarity to previous Alaskan vanishings, where experienced outdoorsmen vanish with no trace, leaving carefully arranged gear, spirals in snow, and electronic disturbances. Local guides warn, Kodiak Island cabins are more than isolated structures. They are potential traps for the unwary. Observers report shadows, flickering lights, low hums, and the sensation of being watched. The island's wilderness is vast, untamed, and possibly sentient in its interactions with humans. For Alaska, and for anyone venturing into remote winter landscapes, the case serves as a chilling reminder. Disappearance is not always accidental, and the wilderness may contain forces beyond human understanding. Ethan Cross's journal, camera, and the surrounding cabin remain silent witnesses, a testament to the unknown. In the harsh, remote winter of Kodiak Island, humans are vulnerable to an intelligence that defies logic, leaving behind spirals, whispers, and a persistent, low-frequency hum that continues to echo in the snow. Nome, Alaska, sits on the edge of the Bering Sea with icy tundra, frozen rivers, and trails winding through treeless plains. Winter nights are long, wind gusts bitter, and snow can obscure all landmarks in minutes. Small towns and remote cabins dot the landscape, often isolated for miles, relying on snowmobiles for transportation. On February 2nd, 2021, a group of 4 longtime snowmobile enthusiasts, Jonas Keller, Leah Winters, Marcus Yates, and Nina Ford, set out for a multi-day expedition along frozen trails north of Nome. Experienced outdoorsmen, they carried GPS devices, satellite phones, and emergency supplies. The first night, the team camped near a frozen tributary of the Nome River. Snow fell steadily, and a low wind whistle carried faint, whispering sounds that none of the group could identify. Jonas noticed tracks leading away from the trail, irregular and larger than a human foot, vanishing into the snow-covered tundra. By morning, Marcus Yates was missing. His snowmobile was parked upright, intact, yet he had vanished without trace. Footprints leading away were short, abrupt, and ended mid-snow, as if he had simply disappeared into thin air. The remaining group reported the incident immediately to Nome authorities. Troopers and local volunteers launched a search, but the blizzard had erased most evidence, leaving only disturbed snow, tracks ending abruptly, and a growing sense of something unseen lurking nearby. By February 3rd, troopers and volunteers organized a 10-mile search along frozen trails using snowmobiles, drones, and infrared cameras. Visibility was limited due to heavy snowfall and drifting winds. Leah Winters reported hearing low-frequency humming sounds, subtle yet distinct, echoing across the frozen plains. Nina Ford described shadows moving unnaturally, elongated across the snow, then vanishing when approached. Jonas Keller noted snow patterns that suggested deliberate rearrangement. Depressions in concentric circles, snow shifted in spirals, and patches where the ground seemed unusually compressed. Drones captured faint, glowing orbs hovering near tree lines, darting rapidly in unpredictable patterns. Infrared cameras detected no heat signatures, yet the objects moved with apparent awareness, avoiding the searchers' gaze. Searchers discovered Marcus's gear slightly displaced, gloves neatly folded atop his backpack, despite the snowstorm. There were no signs of struggle, footprints leading away, or any natural explanation. Authorities concluded that the disappearance was unusual. Patterns in snow, hovering lights, whispers, and a low hum suggested the presence of an intelligent, unseen force rather than wildlife or environmental hazard. By evening, the remaining 3 snowmobilers were evacuated to safety, leaving the frozen trails under an eerie silence, punctuated only by the whisper of wind and the faint hum echoing through the tundra. By February 4th, the storm intensified. Jonas, Leah, and Nina returned to search, attempting to follow Marcus's tracks. Snowdrifts had buried previous footprints, leaving only faint depressions and spirals that seemed to shift overnight. While attempting to navigate a narrow frozen ravine, Leah reported seeing a tall, indistinct figure gliding across the snow, far faster than a human could move. Jonas and Nina saw it as well, translucent yet reflecting light like ice, moving deliberately toward the tree line, then disappearing. Electronic equipment malfunctioned, GPS units froze, radios emitted static, and cameras displayed brief, distorted images of humanoid shapes. A low-frequency hum grew more persistent, vibrating through snow and ice, inducing disorientation and nausea. The trio discovered Marcus's snowmobile again, moved slightly, angled toward the ravine, with his gloves neatly folded atop the seat. Snow patterns nearby suggested the presence of an unseen entity capable of manipulating the environment, leaving spirals, compressed snow, and erasing evidence of movement. By nightfall, the 3 were forced to camp in sub-zero temperatures, barricading themselves in the snowmobile shelter. Outside, glowing orbs and shadows shifted, reacting to their movements, while the hum continued in pulsing waves. The Nome tundra, beautiful but deadly, revealed itself as intelligent and predatory. A landscape that could disorient, manipulate, and vanish even the most experienced outdoorsmen. The following morning, Jonas found a small notebook half buried in snow, apparently Marcus's. Pages contained scrawled observations of irregular tracks, lights in the sky, and the persistent hum, ending abruptly. One page had a strange symbol, a spiral etched into the paper, resembling depressions in the snow outside. Nina recorded footage of the snow-covered ravine, capturing faint glowing orbs moving independently, circling trees and rocks in synchronized patterns. Leah noticed that the figures seemed to avoid cameras when approached directly, yet maintained observation. A search drone malfunctioned, emitting static and distorted imagery. When footage was replayed, Jonas noted partial reflections of humanoid shapes moving against the wind, seeming to defy physics. Authorities later analyzed these recordings, confirming patterns in snow and light could not be explained naturally. and the low-frequency hum appeared consistently wherever orbs or figures were present. The trio barricaded themselves in the shelter again, documenting anomalies in real time. The Nome Tundra's frozen trails, once navigable, had become a maze of observation and disorientation, as if the environment itself had awareness. By February 5th, the presence outside became more aggressive. Shadows moved against the wind, snow spirals formed directly at the shelter's entrances, and glowing orbs hovered close enough to reflect in the snowmobile's metallic surfaces. Leah reported hearing whispers, fragmented phrases repeated in rhythm with the low hum. Jonas noted his compass spinning erratically, and GPS units showed impossible coordinates, suggesting the phenomenon manipulated not only the physical, but also electronic environment. Nina recorded multiple approaches of the orbs, some forming triangular patterns in the sky, moving as if communicating silently. Footprints near the shelter were replaced by depressions in perfectly symmetrical spirals, raising fear that the trio was being actively observed and herded. The remaining snowmobilers realized escape was impossible. Snow and ice conditions, combined with environmental anomalies, made navigation extremely hazardous. Even attempts to call for assistance produced only static or distorted responses. The Nome Tundra had transformed into a sentient trap, disorienting, observing, and manipulating humans. Each day amplified the psychological pressure, with the trio increasingly aware of an intelligent presence beyond comprehension. On February 6th, Jonas vanished. Leah and Nina awoke to find his snowmobile parked upright, untouched, with gear neatly stacked. Footprints leading from the vehicle ended abruptly, with no further trace in snow or ice. The remaining two witnessed orbs moving in synchrony, circling Leah and Nina at a distance. Shadows in the snow stretched unnaturally, and the low hum pulsed stronger with each movement they attempted. Drone footage captured faint, translucent figures gliding above snow, faster than any human or animal could travel. Leah noted that snow patterns had shifted overnight, forming new spirals, depressions, and arcs leading toward the frozen tundra. Attempts to flee were thwarted, the compass spun uncontrollably, GPS units froze, and snowmobiles struggled against uneven, shifting terrain. The environment itself seemed to guide or herd them, disorienting and isolating them from the nearest safe point. Authorities later concluded that Jonas's disappearance mirrored previous Alaskan vanishings. Footprints ending abruptly, gear neatly arranged, and environmental manipulation consistent with intelligent, unseen entities. Leah and Nina remained trapped, documenting everything for potential analysis, aware that Nome's frozen trails had become a hunting ground for forces beyond comprehension. Authorities analyzed drone footage, GPS logs, and audio recordings. Distorted videos displayed glowing figures moving independently of wind or snow, with electronic devices malfunctioning near their presence. Audio contained low-frequency hums and whispers repeating phrases: observe, remain, leave. Infrared cameras detected no heat signatures, yet patterns in snow indicated deliberate interaction with humans. Specialists concluded that the phenomena were intelligent, capable of manipulating environment, electronics, and human perception. Snow spirals, arcs, and compressed patches consistently aligned with the sightings of orbs and shadows. Footprints ended abruptly, often near shelters, snowmobiles, or trail edges. Gear was neatly stacked or subtly shifted overnight, suggesting calculated observation rather than random natural forces. Leah and Nina were extracted under armed escort. They reported persistent psychological stress, disorientation, and fear of being followed, even after leaving the area. The Nome Trail region was declared hazardous for winter expeditions, with warnings to avoid remote trails during snowstorms. Footage from drones revealed the final movements of Jonas before his disappearance. He approached a glowing, humanoid figure on a distant snow ridge. The figure pulsed faintly, then vanished. Simultaneously, shadows on the snow stretched unnaturally, seemingly coordinating with the lights. Leah and Nina observed orbs and shadows moving in synchronized patterns, surrounding them from all sides without physical contact. Attempts to leave were thwarted by snow spirals and irregular depressions, as if the tundra itself reshaped the environment to contain them. Low-frequency hums intensified, pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. Electronic devices failed intermittently, and drones captured rapidly shifting light patterns that defied logical explanation. Authorities later confirmed that the final footage showed invisible forces interacting with snow, objects, and human movement, suggesting the Nome tundra exhibited behavior of intelligent environmental manipulation. By nightfall, Leah and Nina remained trapped in a snow shelter. The Nome wilderness had claimed Jonas and demonstrated a capacity to observe, disorient, and eliminate humans without trace. Authorities archived drone footage, GPS data, and audio recordings. Leah and Nina provided first-hand testimony, reporting unseen presences, glowing lights, snow spirals, and low-frequency hums. Investigators noted the case mirrored previous Alaskan disappearances. Experienced outdoorsmen vanished without trace, gear neatly arranged, environmental anomalies, and electronic interference. The Nome frozen trails became off-limits for expeditions during winter months. Search efforts for Jonas remained unsuccessful, leaving behind spirals, depressions, and subtle rearrangements in snow as silent witnesses to the phenomenon. Local folklore and guide reports merged with facts, describing flickering lights, whispers in the wind, and shadows moving independently of natural causes. The Nome wilderness, though stunningly beautiful, was unforgiving and potentially sentient, capable of manipulating humans, snow, and technology with deliberate intent. Jonas Keller remains missing. Leah and Nina survived, but their accounts describe an environment beyond human comprehension, capable of observing, manipulating, and vanishing humans. Investigators classify the Nome Trail's anomalies as unexplained, intelligent, and manipulative forces, consistent with other Alaskan vanishings. Footprints ending abruptly, gear rearranged, snow spirals, glowing orbs, shadows defying physics, and low-frequency hums. The Nome wilderness serves as a chilling reminder. Experience and equipment cannot always guarantee safety. The environment itself can become a predator, its snow, wind, and light acting as agents of observation and control. Those who venture onto frozen trails must contend not only with the elements, but with forces that remain unresolved, patient, and unpredictable. The Nome trails now stand as a haunting monument to the unknown, a place where disappearance is possible, and survival may hinge on factors beyond human understanding. For Alaskan explorers, the case warns: the frozen wilderness may watch, guide, and claim those who traverse it, leaving behind only spirals in snow, faint lights, and the echo of a persistent, low-frequency hum. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Dark Fears. Throughout these 7 disturbing tales from Alaska, we've witnessed the wilderness claiming the unsuspecting, vanishing experienced outdoorsman, and leaving behind only evidence too strange to explain. Footprints ending abruptly, spirals in snow, glowing lights, low-frequency hums. These are not accidents, nor the result of bad weather. Some disappearances cannot be explained by bad luck or environmental hazards. Alaska's small towns and frozen trails, with their misty forests, isolated cabins, and icy tundras, remind us that nature can be patient, intelligent, and terrifyingly unpredictable. The evidence we've documented, journals, cameras, drones, and first-hand accounts, leaves us with an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the wilderness watches, waits, and decides who leaves and who doesn't. Share your thoughts or personal experiences in the comments below. If you want to explore more true accounts of the unknown, subscribe to Dark Fears for new investigations into chilling mysteries, disappearances, and the forces beyond human understanding. Until next time, keep your lights on and your eyes open.